Right now on Connecticut's news station, protests spread to more colleges, including UConn. What's going on there, and a look at the latest across the country.
Community's members meet in Hartford to talk about keeping people safe, the inspiration behind this mission, and potential solutions to ending violence in the capital city.
And a man arrested nearly a year to the day after a deadly crash. Remember this scene here on the Gold Star Memorial Bridge in New London? What police say he did before the wreck.
All local, all morning. This is Fox 61, Connecticut's news station.
Good morning. Happy Friday. We've got the Friday feels, I think, right?
We got something going on.
Good. All right. So we're glad you're with us. We have a lot going on. America Areas.
Yeah, I'm Keith McGilvery sitting in for Tim. Let's check the weather. Meteorologist Matt Scott.
Good morning.
Hello.
Nice.
Are those new kicks?
They are not. I mean, newish, but
Okay.
but yeah.
Nice.
So I put the casual shoes on because I'm going to do Foodie Friday in a little
know.
bit. So just
Buckaroo, huh?
Yeah, gonna have fun at West Hartford. Just rip the suit off and put the casual clothes on. We won't be doing that on the air. Forecast, another chill out there this morning. We have to check in with the McGilvery cam and see how cold he was walking in to work. It's an NBS forecast. Nothing but sunshine again. And there's a little rain in the weekend forecast. There's also a lot of warmth. We'll talk about that coming up. The freeze warning still in effect for most of the state. Temperatures at or below freezing for a lot of you. And you can thank the clear skies for that. But again, with the sun coming up, fast rebound and a light wind out of the southeast. Who's under freezing? Waterbury, Torrington, New Milford, Willimantic at 29, Putnam at 30, and even down on the shoreline, you can see the numbers are below freezing. So that cold air has really gone the distance this morning. That said, the distance is all the way up to 60 degrees as the high schoolers get off the bus later on this afternoon and set up for a weekend that's got a little bit of everything. It's got some sun, it's got some clouds, got a little rain too. But wait till you see where the numbers are going. And we'll talk about that coming up in just a bit. 6:02, Symphony, you and I have been holding the fort for the last 2 hours so the newcomers can settle in.
But you guys are in for the long haul.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, let's get you up to speed with what's happening outside on this Friday. It's been a pretty smooth commute so far. Statewide, we are starting to see some of those construction zones wrap up this morning in the 6 o'clock hour. So make sure you're on the lookout for those construction workers as you hit the road this morning. Starting off with a live look at I-84 through downtown Hartford this morning. Beautiful sunrise in the works. Traffic volume pretty light as we kick off the 6 o'clock hour. Should be smooth sailing for you on 91, 84, and Route 2. And now we are checking out New Haven this morning. Similar scene out there as we are incident free in that region of the state. We are seeing our usual minor slowdown heading on 95 South, heading to Bridgeport. You'll get there in about 30 minutes. We've got your next update coming up at 6:30.
Symphony, thanks so much. 6:03 now. Pro-Palestinian protests continue on college campuses all across the country from coast to coast. Students and members of the community are speaking out, calling for colleges to not support companies that do business with Israel.
The protests have now made their way to stores. Hundreds of protesters there gathering at UConn last night to voice their opposition to the school's ties to companies that do business with Israel.
At least one person was arrested. Fox 61's Brooke Griffin is live in stores this morning. What's it like there now, Brooke?
Yeah, it's pretty calm right now. This has, let me remind you, been peaceful pretty much the entire time since it started around 5:30 last night. So it's not as if it weren't calm last night. It was just bigger. There were about 300 students here then. Now there's maybe 30 or 40. We've kind of slowly started seeing them wake up and start milling about this morning. You can see a lot of people are just kind of getting coffee, getting breakfast, still protesting though. This is still a sit-in. Now, one thing I do want to mention is these signs that they have sitting over against the artwork here. A couple of different ones that I thought were really interesting where UConn was fine with people camping for basketball. We know this is a big basketball school. They also have a few others that say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Now these are that one's very typical for these protests. We've seen these at a lot of them. They are calling for a free Palestine, but that's not the only thing. These students this morning are also waiting for a response from the university to their demands, but they say that they want them to act on them as well. Right now, these students are peacefully here and police are allowing them to stay as long as they don't set up any sort of tents. That's where it starts to get a little tricky. Now, campus leaders tell us around 5:30 last night, around 300 people gathered near Dove Tower to stage a sit-in with a Free Palestine message to share. One graduate student was arrested during that protest when he allegedly pushed an officer who was actually trying to arrest somebody else. UConn is the latest school to join the university protest movement this week, this one launched by the UConn Divest Coalition.
It is critical that students come together at moments like this because of just how drastic this genocide is right now. 34,000 people dead, over 10,000 children dead. The American people have been speaking out against this genocide for months now. The international community has mobilized around this issue, but to no avail. The United States is still sending funding to the state of Israel to commit its genocide.
And organizers tell us their mission is to bring these students together to push for UConn to sever ties with any and all military and war-related organizations. Now, they have 4 demands this morning. The group is asking for the university to disclose and divest from occupation and genocide. Specifically, they want to see how their money is being spent. They also want the school to sever ties with any sort of weapons manufacturing companies such as Lockheed Martin. They also want to sever ties to the war industry as a whole, as including banning military organizations from recruiting on campus, renaming military-named facilities, removing military members from the board, and rejecting any grants from military organizations. They want to cut ties with Israel, as in refusing contracts and grants from companies that do business with Israel, and end any and all study abroad and academic trips as well. End repression of Palestinian and pro-Palestinian activists is the last one. They say they want to commit to upholding rights of protest, stop intimidation, and use the code of conduct properly. They say they don't want it weaponized, which is something they say has happened in the past. Now, I did just speak with campus leaders a few minutes ago to see if the university has any sort of reply so far to these demands, or even just to the students protesting in general. They do not at this time. She said that she is working on it, trying to see if there is any sort of statement they'd like to release. So far, that is not the case, but I will continue to follow that this morning. And as long as things stay peaceful here, the officers that are standing nearby say that this is allowed to happen. Live in stores, Brooke Ruffin, Fox 61, Connecticut's news station.
All right, Brooke, thanks so much for the update. We know you'll keep us updated throughout the morning. Well, meantime, at 6:07, it was a much different scene at Emory University in Atlanta. Officers in tactical gear removed a lot of people from an encampment on that campus. The school says the activists were trespassing. At least 28 people were arrested, including 20 members of the university community. And 108 people were arrested in an encampment in a public alley at Emerson College in Boston. We're told that 4 police officers were hurt while removing tents and protesters set up around campus. Classes at Emerson were canceled in the interest of public safety.
I'm an Emerson grad. That public stretch there, very, very popular with not only people at the school, but people making their way through the city. So keep that in mind. 608 Columbia University officials saying progress being made in their negotiations with student protesters occupying part of the campus. They say they want to reach an agreement with the protesters to get rid of the encampment by the end of the day. One student protester saying they aren't working on a deadline. While protests continue at Columbia, around 100 people gathering in New York City to show their support for Israel. Many waving Israel's flag and chanted "Bring them home," referring to the people still being held hostage by Hamas. The University of Southern California canceling its main graduation ceremony on May 10th due to security concerns. More than 90 protesters were arrested earlier this week. USC says it will still host all of the individual school commencement ceremonies.
Hartford police are searching for the person who stabbed a man to death in broad daylight. Officers responded to the first block of Plainfield Street just after 3:30 yesterday afternoon for a report of a man who was unresponsive inside of a vehicle. Now, this is just a block away from Keeney Park. That man, 41-year-old Jason Williamson, was rushed to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. Officers are trying to figure out what led up to the stabbing.
We do believe that this incident did not happen here. We believe that this victim was involved in an altercation of some sort in Keeney Park prior to this, about 10 minutes prior. So we believe our crime scene is somewhere between there and Harris.
Police say there are people who witnessed the fight. They say they are now looking for surveillance video of the stabbing. Now that stabbing coming just hours before a meeting about safety in Hartford's North End. Community members and local leaders met to discuss what can be done to prevent violence. Among the attendees, Siobhan Campbell, who is leading the mayor's new Office of Violence Prevention. He spoke about the need to lift up the voices of residents in the community.
I think collaboration. I think everybody is preaching that this needs to be a community effort. Like, it can't just be one department. It can't just be one. It just can't be a city effort. It needs to be with the police, with the community. It needs to be everybody.
And organizers asked the public for input as they look to make the community safer.
A lot of questions this morning about a police-involved shooting in Naugatuck. Authorities saying 2 officers shot a man who was carrying a knife. It happened at Balmer's Pond just after 9 yesterday morning. We're told the officers got into a confrontation with the man, but we don't know exactly what happened. We spoke to people in the area who said they cannot believe what transpired here.
I can't believe it. I really can't believe it. I pick him up almost every day over here, and it's always quiet, nice place to walk.
It's just kind of a shocker, you know, that something like that can actually just happen.
The man who was shot was taken to the hospital. We're working to find out how he is doing this morning. The Inspector General's office now leading the investigation.
State police filed charges against a driver involved in a deadly crash on the Gold Star Memorial Bridge last April. Police say Reginald Collins got a flat tire and that caused him to lose control before coming to a stop on the bridge. A fuel tanker hit the car and then burst into flames, trapping Collins. 2 officers were able to rescue him in time. The truck driver died. Collins faces negligent homicide and other charges.